Rain poured down behind the glass walls of a luxury restaurant, turning the valet lane into a mirror of city lights. A millionaire woman in a shimmering evening gown staggered beside a sleek sports car. One hand clutched her stomach, the other pressed against the hood for balance. Her face had gone paper white. Through gritted teeth, she whispered, barely audible, "I can't go to the hospital." A few feet away, a single dad mechanic was locking up his mobile repair van. His uniform was smeared with oil, his hands stained from a long day of work. He'd just finished his last job and was ready to get home to his daughter. Then he heard her cry out. He turned, saw her, fold in half and ran. She was doubled over, breath shallow, sweat beading on her forehead. A young assistant hovered beside her, panicked, and a security guard stood there like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to care. The mechanic knelt down and spoke calmly. "If we don't go now, you might not have it later." The woman shook her head, eyes wide with fear. "You don't understand. I can't." He leaned closer, voice softer. "I do." He looked right into her eyes, the kind of look that said he wasn't guessing, he'd lived it. "I said those same words once," he murmured, "and I buried someone I loved." Her world froze. His name was David Carter. He was a single dad mechanic who ran a small mobile repair business, fixing cars wherever they broke down, wherever people got stranded. His daughter, Mia, was 8. She loved drawing cars. She used to tell him one day she'd design a van that never broke down again, so he'd never get stuck anywhere, ever. David was a widower. His wife had died 3 years ago because she waited too long to go to the hospital after stomach pain. By the time David carried her through those doors, it was too late. That night never left him, and he made himself a promise: never let anyone delay emergency care, not ever again. The woman in the parking lot was Jessica Rhodes, 32 years old, a self-made real estate millionaire. She was famous for being cold, for never showing weakness, for crushing deals and smiling for cameras like pain didn't exist. But nobody knew her secret. When Jess was 9, her mother went into a hospital and never came out. Jess had waited in a hallway for hours. She remembered the machines beeping, doctors shouting, the sharp smell of disinfectant that stuck to her clothes like a nightmare. And then a doctor had knelt down to her level and said the words that broke her life in half: "I'm sorry. We did everything we could." From that day forward, Jess swore she would never step inside a hospital again, never smelled that smell, never hear those machines, never wait in those hallways. She would rather die than face those doors. Tonight Jess had just finished a loud fundraising gala. She'd felt stomach pain since the afternoon, but she ignored it. She kept drinking. She kept signing contracts. She kept smiling for the cameras. But by the time she reached the parking lot, the pain turned savage. Cold sweat ran down her face. Her vision blurred. Her heart raced. She could barely stay upright. Her assistant, Jenna, rushed over. "Miss Rhodes, I need to call an ambulance." Jess shoved her hand away. "No hospitals. I'm fine. I just need a minute." Jenna panicked and called their driver, but the car was stuck across town in traffic 20 minutes away. Maybe 30. David had been packing up his tools, ready to go home to Mia. Then he heard voices arguing, crying. He walked over and saw a woman in an expansive dress, gasping like her body was at war with itself. He asked sharply, "Has she eaten tonight? Any medical conditions?" Jenna stammered, I don't know. I only know her meeting schedule. I don't know her medical history." The security guard, Brandon, stepped between them and looked David up and down. Oil-stained uniform, dirty hands, old work boots. "Stay back, mechanic. We don't need your help." David ignored him. He looked at Jess. Really looked. Cold sweat, pale lips, rigid abdomen, shallow breathing. He'd seen these signs before. Appendicitis, maybe a blockage, something serious, something that could kill. He spoke firmly. "If she doesn't get checked now, you'll need more than a mechanic. You'll need a priest." Brandon moved like he was about to shove David away, but Jess whispered, barely breathing, No, hospital, please." David pulled up his sleeve. On his forearm, a Tatooine-etched wedding ring with a date, and beneath it, a long scar, the scar from the night he carried his wife too late. He knelt beside Jess again, his voice lowered just for her. "My wife said the same words. I can't go." His eyes darkened, "and I live every day wishing I had carried her anyway." Jess's eyes went wide. For the first time, she wasn't looking at a mechanic. She was looking at someone who understood her fear. Subscribe if you believe sometimes the right person shows up at the worst moment. David stood and looked from Jenna to Brandon, back to Jess. How long has she been in pain? Jenna checked her phone. She left the gala 10 minutes ago, but she was uncomfortable during the speeches. David did the math. At least 2 hours, maybe more. His voice hardened. We need to move now. Brandon crossed his arms. Sir, step back. This is not your concern. David's jaw tightened. When someone is dying in front of me, he said, it becomes my concern. Jess tried to speak, weak and stubborn. I'm not dying. I just need rest. I'll be fine in the morning. David crouched again and studied her hands, shaking, her forehead, soaked. He gently pressed her right side. Jess flinched, so hard she nearly screamed. That reaction tells me everything, he said. Your appendix, or something worse. You need a hospital. Jess's breathing sped up, not from the pain now, but from panic at the word hospital. She grabbed David's arm, grip surprisingly strong. You don't understand. That place took my mother. I was 9. I heard them yell code blue. I never saw her again. Her voice cracked. If I go in, I won't come out. David recognized that look, that fear. He'd seen it in the mirror every day for 3 years. He rolled his sleeve higher, showing the full tattoo, the date, the scar. This scar, he said, quietly, is from the night I broke down a hospital door trying to get to my wife faster. His throat tightened. Security had to pull me back. I was too late. She coded in the hallway. I watched them try to save her. Jess stared at him like the rain had stopped in midair. He continued, voice dropping to a whisper. She said the exact same thing you're saying. I can't go. I'm fine. Just give me a minute. He swallowed. I gave her a minute. Then another. Then another. His eyes shined. By the time I stopped listening to her fear and started listening to my gut, there were no more minutes left. Jess's eyes filled with tears. What if the same thing happens to me? David looked her dead in the eye. Then at least you tried. At least you fought. His voice trembled once, just once. My wife never got that chance because I was too afraid to make her go. Jenna stepped forward, pleading. Miss Rhodes, please, let us help you. Even Brandon finally looked concerned. Should I call an ambulance? David shook his head. By the time they get through downtown traffic, we could already be there. He pointed. My van is right here. Brandon looked at the old repair van, paint chipped, tool stickers. Definitely not what a millionaire should ride in. You can't be serious. David ignored him and looked at Jess. I'm not asking your permission. I'm not asking your staff. He leaned close. I'm asking you. His voice became the only thing steady in the storm. Do you trust me? Jess's entire body shook, fear, and something deeper. She thought of her mother. How the last thing her mother ever said was, I love you. And Jess never got to say it back. She spent 23 years building walls so high no one could see her. And now, this stranger royal on his hands. Grief in his eyes was offering her something nobody else could. A second chance. She nodded. Barely. But it was enough. David didn't wait for anyone to approve. He slid one arm under her knees, the other behind her back, and lifted her up. Brandon stepped forward. Sir, you can't just take her. David turned, voice steel. Watch me. You can call the police. Call her lawyers. Call whoever you want. He carried Jess toward his van. Right now, I'm the only one actually saving her life. Jen ran ahead and yanked the passenger door open. Inside, it wasn't luxury. No leather seats, no fancy screens, just a worn passenger seat with a blanket and a child's drawing taped to the dashboard. Mia had drawn it last week, a picture of their van with wings and big messy letters. Daddy fixes everything, David set Jess down gently, buckled her seatbelt, and shoved a clean shop towel into her hand. If you need to throw up, use this, he said. If the pain gets worse, squeeze my arm. He looked her right in the eyes. Don't be brave. Just tell me. He ran around, started the engine. The van sputtered once, then roared to life. As they pulled out, Jess stared out the window and saw the hospital sign in the distance. Those words she'd avoided for decades. Emergency entrance. Her chest tightened, pure terror. David noticed. He always noticed. Listen to me, he said. Fear killed my wife faster than any disease. He glanced at her. It made her wait, made her hide, made her think she could handle it alone. His voice sharpened. I refuse to let fear kill you too. Jess closed her eyes, a tear slipping down. What if I can't do this? David's voice soft and gentle but unbreakable. You already are. Go asterisk if you want to see what happens at the hospital. The drive took 12 minutes. But for Jess it felt like 12 hours. David kept her awake, kept her focused. Tell me about your business, he said. What do you do? Her voice was strained. Real estate, commercial properties. I flip buildings. David nodded, steering through the rain. So you take broken things and make them valuable again. He glanced at her, almost smiling. We're not so different. Jess, despite the pain, nearly laughed. Except your broken things don't fight back. David chuckled. You haven't met some of the engines I work on. He turned onto the hospital street. The emergency sign glowed red through the rain. Jess's breathing turned fast. Shallow. I can't, David. I can't. He pulled up to the entrance, put the van in park, and turned fully toward her. You know what I realized after my wife died? He said. The thing I was most afraid of wasn't the hospital. His voice dropped. It was living, with the regret of not trying. He pointed at the doors. Those doors. They're just doors. What's scary is what happens if you don't walk through them. Jess stared at the entrance, bright lights, nurses rushing, gurneys rolling, machines. Her hands crushed the seat. I can't breathe. David took her hand. Yes, you can. Through your nose, out through your mouth. He breathed with her, slow, steady. My daughter Mia is 8, he said quietly. She asks me every night why Mummy didn't come home from the hospital. Jess shook her head, tears falling. What do you tell her? David's throat tightened. I tell her Mummy was brave. He swallowed. But sometimes brave isn't enough. If you start fighting too late. His voice cracked just a little. I also tell her I make sure I help someone else's little girl not lose her mom. He looked at Jess. Even if that mom is all grown up. Jess cried openly. No, I don't have kids. Nobody's waiting for me. David squeezed her hand. I'm waiting. Right here. His voice didn't allow an argument. I'm not leaving. He got out, came around, opened her door, and lifted her again. She didn't protest this time. As they approached the automatic doors, Jess buried her face in his shoulder. I can't look, then don't, he said. Just hold on. The doors slid open. The smell hit her instantly. Disinfectant, medicine, memories. Her body started shaking. David called out loud. I need help. Severe abdominal pain. 2+ hours. Rigid abdomen. Possible appendicitis. A nurse rushed over. With a wheelchair? David set Jess down carefully. But she grabbed his arm like he was the only anchor left. You promised you'd stay. I'm right here, he said. I'm not going anywhere. The nurse started wheeling her back. David walked alongside. A doctor, appeared young, efficient. When did the pain start? Jess couldn't answer. David did. She felt discomfort around 6. By 8:30, it was severe right lower quadrant. Guarding, sweating, elevated heart rate. The doctor looked at David. Are you family? David shook his head. No, but I know the signs. My wife died from delayed treatment. Same symptoms. The doctor's expression softened. He understood. Immediately. We'll take good care of her, he said. I promise. Jess looked back over her shoulder, terrified. David gave her a small nod. You're doing it, he whispered. You're the bravest person in this building right now. She disappeared behind the curtain. David collapsed into a plastic waiting room chair, hands shaking. He hadn't realized how scared he was too. A nurse approached. Sir, are you all right? You have blood on your shirt? David looked down, startled. He didn't even know if it was Jess or from scraping his arm on the van door. I'm fine, he said. The nurse studied him. Are you family? Now then, why are you here? David stared down the hallway where Jess had disappeared. Because 3 years ago, he said, voice low, I sat in a room like this and waited too long. He swallowed. Tonight, I made sure someone else didn't wait. The nurse's eyes softened. The bathroom is down the hall if you want to clean up. David shook his head. I'll wait. 20 minutes passed. Then 40. David didn't move. His phone buzzed. It was Ms. Harper, Mia's babysitter. Everything. Okay, you're usually home by now. David texted back. *** emergency. I'm at the hospital. Tell Mia I love her. I'll explain tomorrow. *** an hour passed. David's eyes burned with exhaustion, but he forced them open. He promised he'd wait. Finally, the doctor emerged and walked straight to him. You saved her life. David shot to his feet. It's okay. The doctor nodded. Acute appendicitis. Another 2 to 3 hours, and it would have ruptured. Septic shock. It would have been very bad. David's knees almost gave out. He sat back down hard, breath leaving him like he'd been holding it for years. Can I see her? She's in recovery, the doctor said, and she's been asking for you. David followed down the hallway past beeping machines, rushing nurses, everything that haunted him. But this time, it wasn't too late. They entered a small recovery room. Jess lay in a hospital bed, 4 in her arm, oxygen tube under her nose, but her eyes were open. She saw David and immediately started crying. He stayed. David pulled up a plastic chair. Beside her. I told you I would. Jess reached for his hand. I walked through those doors, she whispered. I actually did it. No, David said softly. You ran through them, even while you were terrified. She stared at the monitors, the sterile walls. This room, it looks like the one my mom died in. David nodded. I know. Then he said the words she didn't realize she needed. But this time, you're not leaving in a body bag. His voice was steady. You're leaving with a second chance. Jess squeezed his hand hard. Why did you do this? You don't even know me. David looked at her, really looked. Because someone should have done it for my wife. Because I know what it's like to lose someone to fear. Because you deserved a chance to be brave, even when you were terrified. He paused, eyes heavy. And because tonight, saving your life helped save a part of mine too. Jess closed her eyes, not from pain, but from relief, not from the shock of being alive when she thought she wouldn't be. David stayed in that chair, watching the monitors, making sure she kept breathing, like he wished he could have done 3 years ago. Outside the window, the rain finally stopped. 3 days later, Jess left the hospital. Doctor's orders: rest. 2 weeks. A week later, she called David. Can you visit? Bring Mia. You don't owe me, please. They rode an elevator to the 40th floor of a downtown tower. Mia pressed her face to the glass, eyes huge. Is she rich? David sighed. Very. Is she nice? Learning, David said. An assistant led them into a corner office with his expensive furniture, a view that looked like the whole city belonged to her. Jess stood by the window, different now, jean, sweater, no armor. Mia stepped forward without fear. You're pretty. Jess laughed, genuinely. Thank you, Mia. Your dad said you'd draw. Mia's eyes lit up. I draw cars. Jess handed her a brand new sketchbook. Draw for me. Mia's eyes went wide. She ran to the table like it was Christmas morning. David looked at Jess. He didn't have to. Jess's voice softened. Nobody saw me that night. They saw the millionaire. She looked at him. He saw someone terrified. David nodded. Fear looks the same on everybody. Jess pulled out an old, faded medical bracelet. My mother's, she said quietly. I carried it for 23 years. That's why I refused. Hospital. She set it on the desk. Now it reminds me of the mechanic who chose life over fear. Tears filled her eyes. She'd be proud. Jess opened a folder. I want to help. David frowned. Help? How? Partnership, she said. She slid the papers toward him. 17 buildings, 63 vehicles. David's eyes widened. David, a lot of vehicles. Jess smiled. You're my mechanic. David shook his head. This is real. I can't. You saved my life, Jess said. Let me honor my mom through what you love. She glanced toward Mia. Your daughter, your business. David stared at the contract, thinking of Mia, thinking of his wife, thinking of second chances. He extended his hand. Partnership. Jess shook it. Mia looked up, holding the sketchbook. Dad, look. She turned the sketchbook around. Mia had drawn David's van new paint, a logo, wings, and in bold letters. Second Chance Garage. David's throat tightened. Your daughter named your company, Jess said, smiling. David knelt and hugged Mia tight. For the first time in 3 years, the future didn't feel like surviving. It felt like living. Jess watched them, 2 people who had saved her life, and the hardest doors she ever faced, had led to a second chance. When do we start? David asked. Jess wiped her eyes. Tomorrow. Mia bounced. Can I design more? As many as you want, Jess said. Jess walked them to the elevator. Thank you for not listening when I said I can't. David exhaled. Thank you for trusting a stranger covered in oil to carry you. The elevator doors closed. Mia held David's hand. Did you save her? David looked down at her and smiled. We saved each other. Mia stared at her drawing. Can we have a mascot? David chuckled. What kind? A phoenix, Mia said proudly. They rise from ashes. David blinked. Surprised that kids see what adults miss. Perfect, he whispered. They walked into sunlight. David carried the sketchbook. Like it was more than paper, it was proof. Broken things can be fixed. Scared people can become brave. And sometimes, saving someone else saves you too. The sun dipped luring and pink across the sky. Mia hummed happily. Something about phoenixes and second chances. David smiled dourly. Smiled, the kind of smile that reaches your eyes and touches your soul. His wife would have loved this. 6 months later, Second Chance Garage was real. New location, professional equipment, 3 employees, and Mia's logo painted proudly on the side. A wheel with small wings. A wrench, and the words, asterisk, asterisk, second chance. Garage asterisk asterisk Jess became David's biggest client. But more than that, she became someone he could call at 2 a.m. when Mia had nightmares. Someone who showed up to Mia's school art show. Someone who understood what it meant to lose someone and find yourself again. One afternoon, Jess called David. I need you to come with me somewhere. David frowned. Where? You'll see. Dave drove to the hospital. The same one from that rainy night. Davy parked at the same emergency entrance. Jess stared at the building. I'm donating money to renovate the emergency wing, she said. New equipment, better waiting rooms, faster care. David looked at her, stunned. That's incredible. Jess unbuckled her seatbelt, voice quiet. I need you to walk in with me one more time. They stepped out and stood in front of the automatic doors, the same doors Jess had been terrified of 6 months ago. She took a deep breath. That night, she said, I told you I can't go. She looked at him. And you dragged me through these doors anyway. David shook his head. No, you walked. He softened. I just refused to let fear carry you the other way. Jess smiled. She stepped forward. The doors opened. This time, she walked through without hesitation. Inside, they met the hospital director, signed the donation papers, toured the emergency wing that would bear her mother's name. Elina Rhodes Emergency Center in the new waiting room. Jess turned to David. My mother died here, she said. For years I let that define this place, defined my fear. She looked around slowly. But you almost died because fear kept you from acting fast enough for your wife. Her eyes glistened. And I almost died because fear kept me from these doors. David nodded. Fear is funny like that. It thinks it's protecting us. He looked at her. But really, it's just stealing our chances. Jess pulled out her mother's bracelets, the one she carried for 23 years. She handed it to the director. I want this displayed here, she said, as a reminder that sometimes the hardest doors to walk through, she swallowed, are the ones that keep us alive long enough to find out why we were spared. The director accepted it carefully. We'll put it in a place of honor. David and Jess walked out together, back through those same doors, and into sunlight. Mia was waiting in David's truck, waving like she'd been waiting for a parade. Jess smiled. Thank you for not listening when I said I can't go. David opened the truck door. Thank you for trusting a stranger. As they drove away, Mia asked from the back seat, Dad, did you save another person today? David looked at Jess. Jess looked back at him. They both smiled. No, sweetheart, David said. Today, we saved each other.